Morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Realized that I just had my whole name a little bit lowercase, so I should probably change that. Hope everybody's doing well on this Friday. I don't know about where you live, but I wake up in mist every morning, which is pretty neat. It just kind of burns itself off during the day, but it's a little bit hard to wake up to. It makes me want to go back to sleep most of the time. So today we're going to talk a bit about advocacy work as a group and where we're heading. And we will do our icebreaker first. So I'm Joanne Roberts, lead consultant for the ECE initiative. And the icebreaker today is, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time or would you choose to go forward in time? And while you're thinking of that, I think I would go forward in time. I'd be curious to see, where we land with everything, particularly right now, so many political things that are happening. I'm hoping that it's a better, more welcoming world, and hopefully it'd be kind of neat if my kids have kids to kind of meet them or generations down. So I think that's what I would do. Morning, Sunny, you made it. You were zipping around to meetings today.
I made it. Well, I was in the classroom.
Good.
Ran down from the classroom to get here on time.
Nice.
So I'm Sunny McFeetris, the director of the Dartmouth College Childcare Center. And I don't know, that's a hard one. The future scares me. So maybe I'd go back in time to see if maybe we could make some different decisions and change the way things are now.
Great. Hey, Anna, how are you?
Well,
That is a hard one.
I think I would go forward in time, but I would go so forward in time that I would not be living. Like I would go like 100 years forward, so I wouldn't have to sit for the rest of my life with knowing what was going to happen to me later on.
Get that. Hello, Rebecca. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. This is a tough question, but I'll go with my initial reaction, which was like, I'd love to go back in time and live through the 90s with my mom, but at the age that I am now, so that I could we could have fun. Maybe we could come out with a really great mother-daughter, like Americana album at the right time, something like that. I don't know, but I think that'd be fun. And the future does seem very scary.
For those of you who are joining us, the icebreaker today, and remember there's no right or wrong, is if you had a time machine, would you choose to go back in time or go forward in time? Hello, Amy.
This is a very hard question. Amy Brooks, Early Care and Education Association. And I like Rebecca's. I like thinking, like, if I could take now and go back to a time, and I don't want to go too far back as a woman, then I can't do what I want. So, I mean, the 80s in my generation were the best. Like, if I could just live the 80s over and over again, and that time of life before bills and responsibilities and things like that. I think I would definitely treasure the time I had with my aunt, a little sweeter than I was back then to her. So yeah, I think I would be, big hair and acid wash jeans and call it good. So
yeah, I think Aquanet might be calling your name. They and burning your hair. Like, hello, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm good. And I want to know what you said. Did you answer this question?
Yeah, I go first because I like to give people a chance. I'm a future person. I would head out into the future at some point. and hoping that we, made some good decisions and it's a more welcoming world. And I'd be curious. I don't know if my sons will have children. One of them has already told me that he would adopt, which would be amazing too. But kind of seeing the generations down the line would be pretty neat.
Great. And I'm Sarah Kobolansky with Couch Family Foundation, and I too would be future oriented. My instinct would be to say the future, and that's because I think there is an age element in here, and Anna, I know that your cohort are really concerned about the environment. You see, inevitabilities about the end of sustainable life in near futures. And I remember living that mindset in my 20s, particularly, and some in my 30s, and finding that there is this combination of things that change dramatically and rapidly, and then things that change so much more slowly, even when they seem like they ought to be dramatic and rapid when they're happening. And so my perspective is that I see so much hope and possibility in young people now that I would want to go forward probably like 2 generations. I would maybe go 50 to 100 years forward to see how the things that I know enough about have evolved in that much time. I think that's what I would like, because I have a lot of optimism about it.
Wonderful. Hello, Mackenzie. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thanks for bearing with me while I'm off camera. I'm going to be heading into the car for another meeting momentarily, but this question is so great. And I was sitting here thinking about my response, and my gut instinct was to say, oh yeah, I definitely go into the future. But then I got nervous. And so I was thinking, oh, I'm a really big music person, and the 70s and 80s feels like home to me, even though I'm actually a 90s baby. So I for some of the reasons that Amy mentioned, I'm nervous also to go back to the 70s and 80s, but I think the music is calling me enough. But if I had to live the rest of my life, I almost might pick like going back to like ancient Greece, Roman Empire-ish times, and think about the ways that civilization started thinking about, like, I don't know, government. I think that would be really interesting too. And I'm the person who watches Ancient Aliens every night. So
Terrific. Hello, Tracy. How are you today?
I'm well, everybody. Hello.
Good. Hi, it's nice to see you. We just did an icebreaker. We're talking about if we had time machines, would we go back in time, or would you decide to go forward in the future? I put you on the spot as you hopped right into the meeting, so I apologize. You didn't get to hear everyone's responses.
That's a tough one. I mean, on one hand, when my girls were young, that was a really wonderful time with them, and I loved that period. But I think I would go forward in the future.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, as always, thank you everybody for just taking the time to share and think about these icebreakers. They always, in a way, link to our work too. I remember the last one we talked about, foods that we remember, and we started talking about our family members and people who took care of us. And in this one, it'd be interesting to see where we are with early childhood education down the line, what progress we have made. I have heard a bit from Emily, and she hasn't been able to hop on, nor has somebody from Let's Grow Kids, so I'll keep on that. Amy, do you have any updates about the Career Cultivator, your participants? I think you were at 10 or 11 maybe.
We are at 11. I think they're in week 3. They completed week 3, and all of their criminal background checks, the state level for New Hampshire, are back. So they can be in the classroom and they can be doing hands-on experiences now. So yeah, they were keeping them for 10 weeks. Oh, also, I should mention, I just heard that all 5 of our summer participants have received their 6 credits from NHTI. So that was our big win. Like yesterday, I think like 3 o'clock, I got an email and it's like, yes, what a great way to close the day. So
excellent. I was wondering, what's the time frame for Claremont, and are you going to need a modular for that, or they're doing it on their own?
Well, we would need help kind of making that decision. If we keep the group smaller, we could do it inside the building. We're kind of waiting that out. We don't really know. That might work better than keeping a modular because they have such restricted parking area and play area. What we can't incur any costs until we know that we're awarded the congressionally directed spending money. So we, it doesn't retro. So we have to be careful about that. We are keeping in touch with Christy, the director down there, and she's still incredibly excited about it. But yeah, we can't. Our hands are sort of tied. I'm also kind of prepping the play field for the Vermont side, the group in Springfield, what their role will be in this work, because they are very interested at the Building Bright Futures, that group. And then there's another group called Kids Count, just Springfield area, and they're interested in partnering. So I'm kind of just trying to set that up. I can't tell them what, but it'll be matching dollars, obviously, to some of the work that we would do for the setup. And then
Amy, they would tie into the Claremont project, or they would have their own?
No, they're looking, they're tried to do something on their own, and it really, they're at every meeting it's like, and when we get to a update from Amy from where are you, like they're waiting for this project to get to Claremont.
But that's what I'm saying is, why wouldn't in terms of scaling this, why wouldn't that be a third site instead on the Vermont side?
That there just aren't enough people, I don't think, for us to have side by, yeah.
Okay. All right, so they just want to feed into that one at this point. Okay.
Yeah, we're expecting to get, we'll probably, being it that it's Claremont, we're going to reach down into the Keene area, and we just have to see, maybe Region 1 can give us some funds, since we're going to be doing the entire, covering the entire region. So
your congressional piece is tied up in this whole mess going on in Congress now, with no budget about anything. And so this could go on until after the end of December if they keep
we expect it to. Yeah, we expect it to be January before we know if all of it, if there's no budget, and they go to the other, I can't remember it, but they go to the other,
the continuing resolution piece, that just,
all of this is null and void. Yeah, so then we'll just move forward. But we are supporting Henniker in filling out their applications for the work to go to the Henniker area. We're supporting them and kind of understanding how we got started, and how, what funds we tapped as far as the work invest. They're filling out their work invest information. They have spoken with Scott Noyes about doing, starting up with the mentors down there to prep for a site in Henniker. We won't, maybe in the future we'll be able to share some costs, like in this triangle. right now they're kind of we're just helping them find their way into
Okay,
starting out.
so that is a scaling activity then, to be guiding them and doing their own work with their own cohorts, their own funding. They're doing it all, but they're using your template and getting guidance and support from you. So that
Sure.
would be a scaling project, that one.
Yeah, we're replicating it down there. Well, we
Right.
aren't, but we're supporting that as far as, helping them with the application. I sent her my copy of the application because that Work Invest application is a monster. And we went back and forth for 6 months trying to get it right. So I'm like, don't do, just do what we
Okay.
did, because
Right.
it's really
So you're
not
coaching.
worth.
Okay.
We're kind of coaching them, answering questions. It's going to look different. It's different. It's a different place. So they're going to have to feel their way through and try to figure out what works for them.
Well, that's one of the flags on this, is that this is community specific in terms of its implementation. So sorry to be interrupting, but I just want to, frankly, I'm just trying to elevate pieces of what you're saying so that it fits into a bigger context at really the really significant level that it is. You tend to understate.
There's just a lot going on, but yeah, so they are hoping to launch their mentor program in January, and then potentially either for a summer launch for the workforce, or a fall launch for the workforce piece. We got to help them figure out what they're going to do as far as their ERS, because we've aligned ours to ERS, we've aligned it to a lot of different things, and we have to take care of the Vermont side in our version. They don't. So it's going to look different just from there. So they may not need 10 weeks. They may be able to do it in 8. We're also trying to figure out the subpool piece, because the subpool app kind of goes away in 2025. So we'll be able to share the cost with them of that Childcare Matters app, and also potentially
why does the app go? I mean, the free access to the app as opposed to having to pay for it, and what's the cost of it?
The startup is the heavy cost. I want to say it's $25,000 just to get it loaded and to get just to get started with it.
And that would be for that'd be for one hub, for one site. Or is that, if you had that at ECEA, could it be used by all these different groups?
If we had it at ECA, it could be used by all, but we're going to share the cost. Like, we can't afford, it's not worth it for us to do it, to pay kind of money. But we just have to figure out how many slots, because I think I think Vermont has like 20 or 30 slots, and we have 25 of them. So we can have 25 people in the subpool.
Okay, let's you and I take this offline, because this is a problem that may have some other solutions. Okay.
Yeah, the reason I kicked it off with needs is because I recently attended meetings with organizations that are like, what do you need? So I was mowing the lawn, as you guys know, is my new thing. And I was like, does she need a modular? Right. And then now you're like, I could use $25,000 and it would support by state, perhaps organizations. When I think of Dartmouth College and I think of DH, this is like exactly what Carolyn was talking about. Like, what do you need? And so they're almost
other businesses have not had a way to participate and are willing, if you got 5 businesses throwing $5,000 a piece in at this, or some businesses could do the whole 25. And so you have 50 and not 25. And, as you grow this out, you want more people to be able to be in the subpool. That's why I want to take this offline, because I want to say, how big can you think about this element? Yeah. Then what's the financial need? And it is a perfect plum to give to those who want to help and don't know how.
I think that, we're still figuring out how to feed the subpool. We're still figuring out how to manage, like, we've never done this before, so we're, trying to figure out like agreements and, interactions with centers and
This is a
encouraging people
pilot
to go
within
to
a
different
pilot.
places
Okay.
within a pilot. And the other thing we're not sure about is Vermont really hasn't had much success for it. I think they have one sub in their sub pool. So I don't think they're going to put any more money into it because they have no way of feeding it. So I'm kind of like preparing myself in 2024 that we need to look at. And I don't know if we can buy just New Hampshire, if we can buy Vermont, or if we can
Amy,
buy a
let's talk
regional
separate
access.
from this and with Joanne too. There are answers to all of these things. You don't have, you're thinking from scarcity now. Got to shift that mind again.
Well, what's exciting is that you're already bringing people into the sub pool, bringing people into the profession, expanding it, modeling it. I mean, that's amazing what you've accomplished so far, and the fact that people are talking about it, and whatever you've done so far has been, I deeply respect. It's been solid. It's been about high quality. It's been about providers. You're coming from such a good place that I'm sure once that list of needs is out there, people will come and help support it. So that's exciting on so many different levels, Amy. That's amazing. We talked a bit offline, Mackenzie, Amy, and I, about the legislation on universal pre-K. There was some work on this at a different level. And I wonder, Mackenzie, is there any new information that connects with our work here, or is it still, they're just trying to figure out what that would look like? We talked a bit also, so people know, outside of a meeting, about connecting some Vermont folks with New Hampshire folks. Maybe other communities could create a gathering to share some of the glitches, for lack of a better term, with the rollout of universal pre-K in Vermont, so the states can learn from one another and talking about that. Is there any update, Mackenzie?
Yeah, I think I'll do my best to give a succinct update with the information that I have, and then we can talk about next steps. So right now, there are two pieces of legislation sitting that are either retained or referred in their respective body. So there's one in the House and one in the Senate from the 2023 session. And those bills need to be acted on by November and December. There are the language in either bills is very similar, although one of them was amended to originally the bill had created an Office of Early Childhood, and then the bill was amended to have that removed. And a lot of the legislator commentary has been around, where does it live? Does it live in the Department of Ed? Does it live in DHHS? Is there a separate entity? And the sense that I'm getting, and this is just my observation of other people's, what they've let me know, is that the sponsors of that legislation, Senator Becky Whitley and Representative Mary Heath, who are both women, Democrats, is that they don't feel like the Department of Ed is really prepared to house something like this. And at the same time, there's complexities with the Waterford Upstart program and how they feel as though the department has really bought into the theories behind Waterford. And I'm not sure if everyone on the call is familiar with it, but it's an electronic online learning tool for kids with using a screen, and they say like max 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week, something like that. Anyways, the department really invested into this program, and the concerns of the legislators are that if we pass this legislation now, we're concerned that we don't have the right infrastructure to do it well. And the concern is that DOE may believe that this Waterford Upstart program is a sufficient replacement for high quality early learning, when we know that that's not really the case. So all that to say is those two pieces of legislation are sitting right now. There's been a little bit of movement on them, but the sense I got is that the representative would prefer to kill her bill than see it go into DOE. And the Senate bill may have a little bit more momentum behind it, but I believe, from my understanding, is that that bill also would place that work into DOE. So I need to do some more learning there. So those are all complicating factors. The other complicating factor is that the Department of Health and Human Services put out an RFP for capacity building, which some of you may have seen recently. The department reached out to, I think, most licensed childcare providers recently and said, we have some money for a pre-K pilot. This is separate from those two pieces of legislation. And so this effort is using ARPA funding. I don't know the full gamut of who qualifies, but you essentially already have to be running a high quality pre-K mixed delivery program out of your center. And then the funding for this would be awarded to centers, and the funding is to be used for staffing and things like that, but also kind of, I think, an interesting opportunity for us. What I'm calling it is like a pre-pilot, like an opportunity for folks who are already doing some mixed delivery pre-K programs, for us to also collect data about what's working, what families actually need, what is not working, what are the different levers that we have to pull to be able to make it accessible for families. And so it's Friday. I'm recognizing that was a lot and that it's complicated. I'm not sure in terms of next steps. I do believe that we should continue having conversations with people to increase education and awareness about what we need as a field to successfully implement a high quality, universal, high quality mixed delivery pre-K program. And I'm just not sure, and I think many of you agree, I'm just not sure we're there yet. And we have a lot of other things that we're working on. So I think my suggestion is that we continue on these education with pieces with people in positions of power who are making these decisions, just so they know, like, hey, this is the complicated piece about this. Families need transportation at 12 p.m. We can't ask families to leave work and go pick their kiddos up. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions if I have answers, but that's what I'm thinking.
I believe it's
really
limited
helpful.
to, you have to be Head Start, any EYC accredited, or GSQ Step 3 in order to participate. And you have to be, basically, this is a commitment to help you move to Step 4, is what I get from the application.
And Amy, I'm curious, like, what your take is. My sense is that there's also a kind of a clause in there that says, like, preference given to folks who are servicing kids of diverse backgrounds. And so my sense is there really aren't many locations that are already pulling off this program. So I think, unfortunately, for better or for worse, I think this funding is going to go to some heavy hitter centers that we are trying to think of how to say this. The typical folks that get lifted up when this funding tends to come out are going to get lifted up, which is great. We have an opportunity to collect some data. We have an opportunity to talk about what are the levers, but it's unfortunate because it's going to come, in my opinion, I'm sure that centers in Nashua, Manchester, and maybe one on the Seacoast will get picked. So that's my general sense, and me forecasting things that, could totally happen in a different way. But
the other interesting contrast to this is they brought back License Plus. They've kind of sort of frozen the GSQ and brought back License Plus in order to get more money out in the field, because so many people are not engaging the Granite Steps for Quality Rating Improvement System, the QRIS system. So June 26th, they're doing a temporary continuation of License Plus with a straight up 5%, not the quality award, but the straight up 5% extra on scholarship dollars to get money out in the field. So they're still trying to figure out the QRIS, yet they're moving people from step 3 to step 4. So it's a little bit confusing to me.
Affirming for me to know that it's not just me who's confused.
Thank you very much for that update. Sounds like it's something that we should keep an eye on. And I will circle back, Mackenzie, with you and Amy to see if Vital Communities can play a role in getting people talking on both sides of the river about what we can learn from one another with the process. I came up at a meeting with Sarah V, and I think Sarah K were there. I've been in a bunch of meetings. I know we all say that, but it's true. And it's just in the back of my mind that is that collective impact concept of learning from one another that I'd like to embrace and put Vital Communities in that place of bringing people together about the EC initiative. And I know that Mary, is it Mary Heath? I know it's Heath. Is it Mary?
Yes.
That we've talked to, okay, thank you. That we talked about making a connection with on that. This also reminds me to, I don't have all the background and perhaps others can provide it. I became aware of ELNH and a GoFundMe kind of opportunity, and I'm not quite sure the concept or where the funds are or who they're seeking donations for through the GoFundMe avenue. Sunny, is that something that you know about that you could help me understand the intent?
The intent is to start something similar to Let's Grow Kids. And ELNH is in a position where they can take the lead on that. And I think it's unfortunate that they started with the GoFundMe campaign, because it really changed the whole focus of what they want to do. The GoFundMe campaign is to demonstrate to other contributors that there's a real interest. So they can say, if we have this many contributors, to the GoFundMe campaign, that shows you how important this is, to the state of New Hampshire. So of course you want to put your federal and state and, private money toward this campaign. They ultimately figure they need to raise $250,000 to start the entity that can actually take on the campaign to raise wages for all early childhood providers in the state of New Hampshire. They have goals for that campaign, but they figure they need probably at least 15 staff people, and looking at advocacy and communication and social networking and all sorts of different aspects. That's what the GoFundMe campaign is to go toward. It's not to go toward the campaign to raise wages. So it's just to start that office or entity. I don't even know what they're going to call it, for lack of anything else. You can call it Let's Grow Kids New Hampshire. And then that's not their words, that's my words, but that's what unfortunately they started with the GoFundMe campaign because that really changed the whole focus of what they're doing. The Child Care Advisory Council has been talking about doing something in this way for a while, but they are not in a position to be able to do that because it's not, part of their purview. So ELNH said, "Oh, we have that capacity. We can do that," and so they stepped up. I know Jackie Cowell started the GoFundMe campaign, but I also know she has the backing of her board, to take this on as well. So
Thank you for that summary. I was just confused about the different pieces, so that's really helpful. How does
Sunny, what do
this,
you think it means that it's a $100,000 campaign and it has been stuck at 12 donors and $450 for over a week?
I think it means that they haven't really gotten it off the ground yet. I think that there, in my opinion, this is my opinion only, that there wasn't the forethought for, okay, how do we get the word out about this and how do we make it clear what this money is going toward? I think that it's not widely publicized at this time. And I don't think they really looked into, okay, what are the consequences of starting this way? And so I don't think that Jackie feels like it's really started yet, even though it's out there. And she's hoping for more. She's hoping for more as she goes along. But my opinion is it got started too soon without the foresight that it needed to make it, you know, what she really hoped it would be. And it would be concerning to me, just your point right there, that there's $100,000 goal and they've raised $450 for anyone who's looking at it. That's not going to support that's not going to do what they hoped it would do, to say, oh, 12 people are interested in, you know, putting their $35 or their, you know, I think there might have been some $100 or more donations in there, but
2 for 100, 2 for 50.
Yeah.
That's 4 people. And then the other 8 people have contributed the other $150.
Right. So for me, it's a wait and see thing. If they can, you know, even their messaging, I was even concerned by the messaging that went out with the announcement of the GoFundMe, that it wasn't clear to me, and I have knowledge, so it wasn't clear to me what the money was going toward or how it was going to be used. And I don't think people are going to donate. I'm not sure why they chose this rather than just going to their bigger funders to start with, but that's the way they chose. So I'm worried that it might backfire, you know, what they really want to do. You know, it's a really important issue. This really speaks to, you know, and I've said this over and over and over and over again, and I don't know if Vital Communities can have any part of this, but this really speaks to the fact that there are so many siloed agencies that all want what's best for early childhood, but they're all going about it in different ways and sometimes are at odds with each other, which really, to me, is more detrimental than beneficial. So, and it's not just this one case. I think it's overall that, you know, we all are little silos and somebody gets an idea and goes for it because there's not that unifying entity that Let's Grow Kids became, you know, in Vermont, I feel. But also, even though that's the kind of model they want to have for ELNH, it's not the same because their only goal is raising wages for early childhood people. It's not an all-encompassing, these are all the really good things we should be advocating for early childhood. So, you know, Mackenzie, being in one of those silos, I don't know if you have any insight on that at all as well.
Can you all hear me okay? In the car, so I can't tell if you can hear me.
We can mostly hear you.
But now
Mackenzie,
you're
you want to
muted.
try again? Now you're on mute, Mackenzie. Oh, she says, give me 5 and I can respond. Okay.
We can do that.
What I would comment on were 2 things Sunny said. Sunny, I think you have given the most eloquent, balanced, non-judgmental description of the challenge in New Hampshire around advocacy for ECE. You just did it in the sentences that you offered. And and then the next challenge to that is who can bring people to the table without feeling like another competitor who has an agenda that is a silo, as opposed to authentic capacity to be a convener for all of these groups and these interests and moving it forward. And I will tell you that the Couch Family Foundation feels that it's spent a year and a half investing time and resources in trying to understand this, has come to the exact same conclusion that you just articulated, and is now really looking at that who will be trusted to be able to move things forward, because they would invest in it. And I know that the other big funders who they are in constant communication with would also fund it. And I also know that none of them were willing to fund ELNH for this, which is why, in fact, they have gone to their big funders and been told no.
And the reason I brought this topic up in a timely, hopefully a timely fashion, is that there's this organization, there's the Couch Foundation that is talking about more clarity in the steps to take in New Hampshire and the funding behind it. And then Jackie Furman and Ariel are coming to our meeting on October 13th. And it was Jackie and Ariel that we met with Amy, who I mentioned months ago, who had a very interesting concept in place, and they've been touring New Hampshire, sharing that idea. They have support for that. This is where I can see vital communities, once again, to use your words, Sarah, the convener of these conversations. So whether it's universal pre-K, that's something that we can do. I would love to have those 3 groups sit at the same table and share, because each of them have a different slice of this pie that we're trying to bake, that we're trying to get together. And I may be wrong, but my sense is that those are the 3 leader organizations that I've heard about that want to step forward in a Let's Grow Kids kind of manner, but they're not talking with one another. And so I think that if we could have the Jackies get together with some representatives of the Couch family organization, talk about what their visions are. So as you mentioned, Sunny, their ELNH is very focused on raising wages. That's fantastic. Another organization might have a focus on the research backing high quality ECE and what needs to happen in those realms. And then another might have a governmental infrastructure piece that we've been trying to talk about, like who needs to be at the table. I wonder with this advocacy group, if I should go to the steering committee and ask to try to get these folks together sooner rather than later, and in a meaningful way, in some kind of dialogue. If there's an additional consultant that has done a lot of this work, I think the Couch family would fund that consultant. I would be the convener, but perhaps the conversation could be led by someone else, or even maybe Sarah V wants to lead it. But I think this is the important advocacy work that we've been trying to figure out. What's the role of this group, and to me, I don't know, seems like this straight light of like, this is the work that we really need to do for vital communities, because the goal is, right, to lift this and have it land somewhere else. And if we continually have folks working in silos, there's not going to be an organization that's going to be able to absorb it, and not just absorb it, but do it well and to move it forward for decades to come. And so I'm wondering people's thoughts about my going to the steering committee and asking their comfort level and trying to do this kind of work on both areas of universal pre-K, and then kind of knocking down the silos that are happening. What are people's thoughts about that? Excuse me. I mean, are we at that tipping point to hold these conversations? It seems like people are now stepping into an arena, but it's not organized, and it's not clear what they are doing.
What I know is what it took in Vermont was a lot of private funding to lift that. Yet it was independent. It seemed to me, I wasn't there at the beginning, but it seemed to me that it was, I remember going back, way back, Sunny, and I think it was Rachel Hunter came to our meeting and started talking about power to the profession, and started like getting the will of the providers to understand, like there was just all of this really strategic work that was done by this, that was strategically done by this group of people, independent of any other organization. They were their own organization. And I just keep thinking of that, like it, and I also, on the other side, I'm hearing from the political, realm of people that I intersect with, that we need to lift something together, because all of these, I mean, there's people in Keene putting in bills. There's bills being put in right now that we don't even know what they are. Like we haven't even heard of these. Like everyone's like, well, have you heard of any bills going in? Why is it like that? That seems to be number one issue, is yes, we need to convene, but get the right people. I don't think this is work for grassroots to create bills. I think this is the work of strategic, experienced planners. And we don't have that anywhere in our realm right now. I would love to see what some strategic person says about this state. What is the root? What is the role of New Futures? What is the role of ELNH? What is the role of director networks? What is the role? And help us think about that before we create a plan and put in a bill. But I know there's bills in right now. I know Jackie said they put in a bill to create this fund to prepare for this, for the this one little strategy of wages. But is that the right do we have the political will of the state for that? Have we thought about that? That takes apparently 35 people, according to the Let's Grow Kids Project, and 6 attorneys. So I don't know. I think I would love to talk to someone in Vermont at the very beginning and see if this was happening in Vermont. What was I'm sure they were having.
Tammy wrote in the chat, would connecting Allie Richards from Let's Grow Kids to the New Hampshire organizers help? Well, I think that it's both Allie Richards from the Let's Grow Kids lens and Matt Levin from the collective child advocacy lens are the two strategic people, perhaps, from Vermont to think about this. One of the things to always remember about Let's Grow Kids is they're in their unwinding phase. They are now down to 2 years and 3 months of life left, and they are unwinding their organization. But I think that, taking Tammy's lead on that and asking those two with these focused questions. I mean, this conversation right now, I will tell you frankly, is the conversation the Couch Foundation has been waiting for this group to have. I will also tell you that New Hampshire Charitable Foundation is a big investor in this work, except so far they've been putting their money into New Futures, by and large. And then the question is that the right place? Or is New Futures one of the players that can really do the state house work, the legislative work, but only after an agenda is developed in a collaborative and consensual kind of way? And so we've got an element in New Futures, but we don't have all of the infrastructure leading up to what they are best at doing. And so, you know, the appetite for this group to really say these things, it's like the emperor's new clothes conversation. And then hold on and say, we are willing to help other people figure out how to do this. And we're going to keep saying what we see, which isn't to say we have the answers, but we can at times say things like, okay, so sticking that office in Department of Ed and having them say, you know, Waterford Upstart is the answer. Like, if it was as simple as that, don't you think it would have already happened? So I'll stop at that point, but just to say, I'm so impressed with this conversation, and so glad to be hearing it.
What I think makes sense, Sarah and Amy, is we were going to get a hold of Sarah V to talk about data, right? And some of the big ideas. Let's add this as a third bullet point, because I would love to work with the Couch Foundation to set up a convening meeting with key folks, organize that through Vital Communities, talk with a consultant with you about the key points that we're, you know, the silos where we're hitting against the wall, because we have to break through the wall. Right now, we just keep swimming up to it and like do a deep dive and kick off and go back. And it's like, nope, done with that. You know, we really need to break through. And what I see this is a positive thing, right? It's a tipping point that we're experiencing in New Hampshire. And we, through Vital Communities, can learn from other states, learn from other organizations, and bring it together to create an agenda with these people sitting at the table, understanding who's doing what, right? Definition of roles and definitions of power in a good way. Like New Futures has power in regard to the legislation. That's what I'm hearing. ELNH has its own power, its own, you know, an entity. And if we can pull them together, right, that's how this Vital Communities work can make a big difference. So I think that we've kind of gone through, to use the mist conversation that I used when I said I'm getting up and it's misty every morning. I feel a little bit like we were in the mist, just trying to figure out, you know, and now it's like, okay, sun's out, we're moving. We've had the dialogues, we've had the conversations, we're grounded in our work, we've looked at the data, and we know what needs to happen. And I think that's, you know, what this advocacy group really needs to move forward with now. And we feel comfortable in those shoes. I think when I first started, not everyone was comfortable. What did we mean by advocacy? What does that look like? So we've defined what a comfortable means for this this work, in where, yeah, there'll be small subsets of people showing up to support certain bill or whatever, but we could be the underpinnings. And I think that that's a really important part of our work, with all the wisdom in this group, and the expertise and knowledge. I think we can really grow with that. I will add to this, under other business, I wanted to mention that we met recently with Jill. I can't think of her last name. She's a coach consultant. Sarah V, Amy was there. I'm trying to think of who else was there, but it was in regard to a panel that Barbara Couch is putting forward, which is the Upper Valley Funding something, UVFF. And
it's the Upper Valley Funders Forum, and their facilitator is Jill Marshall.
Thank you. so we were asked to present ECE to this large group and what's happening with ECE. We spent an hour together brainstorming what our presentation would look like for a panel. I also think it all fits together, right? We're talking about you need funds to do this kind of work. And that's why my brain is like, this is the tipping point. This is when people are coming together naturally. And we're going to meet prior to that. That meeting is November. So we wanted to meet now to get to know one another and understand each other's roles, putting together the questions that we thought of. But at the end, they're going to be asks, right? Whenever you do a presentation, how can we help? And one of the things I would like this group to also think about is when people come and they say, how can we help? Whether it's financial help or expertise, that we have our quick and ready list of here's things that you can do. Because there's nothing worse than getting people excited about something and then go, well, we'll get back to you if they're interested. And or just providing this information to folks who might not have awareness of ECE issues is a real, a positive thing. It's another avenue for vital communities to support this work. But I wanted to mention it because it's yet another group of people that we're going to be going in front of to talk about this issue. And the timing seems to fit well with what we are talking about today. So I wanted you to be aware of that meeting that's coming up too. Want to remind you, Joe Kenny, I sent out the questions in advance to the workforce group. He is coming on the 25th, so I don't need to confirm that date anymore. That's old. The questions are very similar to what are they? They are the same as what were asked of Cindy Warmington, and Sean is going to facilitate. Sean Mahone's going to facilitate that meeting on Monday. And I'd written here what Sarah's already talked about, which is the Couch Foundation wanting to take the lead on, gathering information for advocacy actions, and they're going to, be a great knowledgeable group to help us navigate advocacy. And what does that look like? So we can roll up our sleeves and do a little bit more with that work as well. Any other business that people would want to talk about? We covered a lot today, but it really is all coming into the same, if you look at it like it's coming into the same path in just different directions. And Mackenzie, did you want to talk, if you're in a place that you could, didn't want to forget that you were going to talk a little bit about the work of ELNH currently, the GoFundMe part. I don't know if you've heard what Sunny shared, if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you. Can you all hear me okay now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I was just coming off of mute earlier when Sunny was speaking to say, like, here. Sunny said most of the thoughts in my head, and also just recognizing that it's a little, I'm an odd partner at the table because I come at this from a little bit of a different angle. And obviously we have different, like I'm a national organization. So all those complexities aside, I think the GoFundMe is confusing for the advocacy field. And I think it's unfortunate because I think it sends a weaker message, unfortunately. And so that all aside, I concur with what Sunny said, and I just think it makes things a little bit more complicated, and I'm not sure if that's the path that we would have chosen, but I wonder, is this a good time, like Amy alluded to this a little bit earlier, but is now time to give you a layout of some of the things that are coming out of the House? We know that the filing session ended for LSRs there, so we have a sense of what some of that looks like. I didn't know if this is a good time for that, or if that update is wanted, or if we want to wait.
I think it would be great to have an update. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so Amy alluded to a good portion of it earlier. Representative Rebecca McWilliams has a couple of bills around this child care workforce fund. And the reason for that fund existing is to sort of shore up the infrastructure for her other bill, which is to allow child care providers access to public benefits, so state health insurance, paid leave, that sort of thing. I'm also seeing a lot of licensing type bills come up, especially from Representative Rossberry, who is the chair of the House Special Committee on Childcare. I would take a look at those because licensing isn't my wheelhouse. I'm happy to follow up with the specific LSRs. We don't have language for these bills yet, so I don't know what his intent is, but I know that some of the folks on this call who've had decent conversations with him probably have a gist. But he looks a little bit at ratios. He looks at complaint times. A couple other things though that look concerning to me, and I apologize, I'm not sitting in front of my computer right now, that there's one in particular that I lifted the other day for some partners, and it was kind of like, whoa, we haven't heard of that one. Oh, it had to do with the Child Care Advisory Council, 2 bills. So I would definitely take a look at those. Trying to think what else. There is one or two bills looking at a child care tax credit against the business profits tax, I believe. And I have to connect with that representative and see if what the mechanism is there. Is it a child tax credit for providers, or is it a credit for families? I'm not really sure there yet, but I think that's all that's on my radar at the very moment in terms of work connected to early learning and at least the House members' legislation being filed. But I don't know if anyone else has any other things that they're seeing come up or have questions.
Yeah, Mackenzie, do you have like a grid of the bills? Do you have a tracker for the
I
bills
do.
yet?
Yeah,
Could you share that
sure.
with this group so that with Anna or Joanne or whatever, so that we can have it available to all of us? That was just a phenomenal outline.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. And yeah,
And
we still have time too. So to be clear, there's still a Senate deadline that will come in October. And so we'll then see that body of LSRs come out then as well.
Right. And I don't know if you can see the chat at all. Tracy Hutchins has said that she thought this was a great discussion, and once there seems to be a coordinated direction for New Hampshire, she would like to help galvanize support from chambers of commerce. So, people are identifying their lane and their contribution, which is phenomenal. It's exactly turning this thing on its head. As opposed to identifying your ownership, you identify your contribution, and that's beautiful.
So 2 things. Tammy, if you would connect me with the person, then we can maybe figure out some dates. That would be great. And then Amy, Joe Kenny for Friday. I thought Joe Kenny was coming Monday.
It's the 25th, right? Or the 20.
And that's Monday? I'm hoping that's Monday.
That's Monday, Amy.
It's Monday. Hang on. Let me look at what I sent him. Make sure it's right. Yes, the 30th. It's Monday,
No,
the 30th?
the 30th is Friday.
Oh dear. Give me a second.
Tammy, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, the 30th is our retreat. So
Saturday.
It's the 25th.
That's Saturday. The 30th is Saturday.
I know, but that's our retreat day.
Yeah.
So I had sent him 2 dates to remind him. So it's Monday and Saturday. No, the 25th is Monday at 12:30. I got it right. I was saying it wrong.
All right. And Rebecca,
Yeah,
I saw you started chat. Can you hop in?
So and Sunny, you might have real insight into this, but my partner works for Dartmouth and got an email about a program that they're starting up at the beginning of this year, which is basically a benefit through a dependent FSA, where Dartmouth is essentially subsidizing childcare. And they're pretty substantial amounts. So it's tiered based on income. Only one parent per household that works at Dartmouth can apply for the for the program, but for somebody who makes $60,000 or less, it's $4,000 a year, et cetera, and it the subsidy goes down as the income goes up. But what I'm looking for from the group is how obviously one thing can't solve everything, but this is like a piece of the puzzle. So in conversation with businesses to help other businesses understand what this does to the market in general, you know, how would this group, you know, like ground this in like, it's good to make childcare more affordable for houses. This doesn't improve the number of slots open. You know, if there were a piece that went together with this, what would or should it be?
I
And that
usually
might be
don't interrupt or
confusing.
speak first. No, I don't think it was confusing. I think you ask all the right questions. So I want to say, go you in your brain for having good questions on Friday. I think this is so important to lift up. And I agree with you that, like, you're right, it doesn't solve slot problems, but it addresses like family affordability, right? And so we have to, as grassroots advocates in the field of folks who are thinking about this, figure out how to meet where businesses can meet us with, you know, family affordability. Like, how can we add capacity to the field? And I would love to brainstorm with you how we could maybe write like an op-ed
Yeah.
for the Upper Valley to talk about that. We could talk about it from the parent lens and then the provider lens. And one other thing I was just thinking about is I went to the Strengthening Family Summit last week, held by the New Hampshire Children's Trust. And I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. What was I telling you about parent provider? Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Caffeine hasn't totally kicked in. So I went to a small group session as a part of that event to talk with this business collaborative, a group of businesses who had sort of banded together, and they were all working on these family-friendly policies. So it included, I'm sure, heavy hitters that you all know, like Badger Bomb, Timberland. There was a bank there, folks around the Keene area, and they were all like trying to offer childcare supports or paid family leave or these sort of progressive policies. And one of the things they did was they would go they offered themselves as resources to other businesses in the community to talk about like innovative ways they could help meet their employees where they were at as people. And it was just really interesting that the thought hadn't occurred to me that businesses may band together to sort of create this brain trust around how can we make these changes for our workforce in a non-political isn't the right word, but a non-legislative way. And so I wonder if there's a collaborative like that in the Upper Valley, or if we could connect them with folks from this group that I met who are in the Keene area to start talking about the other business solutions. So we could be a good connector piece there.
And absolutely, this is what the corporate council, who are the big employers in the Upper Valley, have been waiting for. So both Dartmouth College and Dartmouth Health sit there, but there are many other companies also. And then Tracy, who was on our call, sits on the corporate council, but she is the convener of all the small businesses. So she sits there with, you know, in her mind, with a cohort of several hundred other companies, but that are small ones. And so in the, you know, sort of my analogy is in the same way that the big companies might be like the child care centers and the small companies might be like the home care providers. You do have two sort of business populations to think about, but there is interest on both sides of that coin. And yes, you know, making connections through that would be very important, and having connections to that through Joanne would be the way for us to start that, I think. And I think, Joanne, you'd be up for. She's nodding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the more that we can communicate this need and how each party can be part of it and support it is critical. I think this is the time to try to do that. And I'd be happy to help however I can.
And I know that it's really important to Sion Bialek, who is being inaugurated today as the president of Dartmouth College, that she knows this is a first step, and she recognizes that this is not an answer, but it is a first step and it is a help. And actually, the college a year ago made a change to their family leave policy so that, parents can be at home with children longer, than they were before. And that really was the first step. And now to get some money, to people. And when you think about how much families are paying for childcare, the cap is, the $1,000 goes to any person who's earning more than $150,000 a year. And I just know from my sliding fee scale and from, that $1,000 isn't a big deal off from your childcare bill, but it's something, and the same, for the lower income families, $4,000 is what they're getting. And that probably is a little more, so it's looking at everything in equity and, how it works. But I know that Sion is making both childcare and housing, very important issues, as she takes office and goes forward. So I'm really hopeful for the role that, Dartmouth can play in, in this whole, in the Upper Valley piece, but also statewide, what role can Dartmouth play? And I think that Dartmouth Health will probably be, right there as well. I know that they have lots of conversations, with Joanne Conroy as well, just to see, what role can we play and how can we be, how can we be a leader in demonstrating what a business can do, for their employees.
Sunny, can we see what Dartmouth's program is? Are they willing to share it as one type of model that could be helpful to others?
Yeah, it was an email that was sent out to you mean just the savings account piece?
Not just the savings account, but the time off, just the whole family.
I don't know if there's a place that all sits, because just like there are all, that was done by a different president, in a different
right
thing. The first part was,
could you share the email though? That
yes,
because again, our intent would be to celebrate what they're doing and be able to make it known to other employers.
Yes. And I'll even look back and see if I can find the emails about the family leave changes as well, but I may still have those as well.
Sunny,
that'd be super.
Yeah, thank you. Do you think it lives in HR? Because Dartmouth is really trying to recruit people to come up to the Upper Valley, and I wonder if that's something that's on their HR page as about.
Well, I'm sure it is, but not all succinctly in one place. It's not, they'll have a family leave policy page. And now this this hasn't started yet, the subsidy. Families can enroll in this during open enrollment, which is coming up soon, but it's not something that just automatically is given, to anyone who has young children. You have to apply for it, during open enrollment as well. And, as Rebecca said, it's just one, if it's a family that two members both work at Dartmouth, only one, of the parents can apply. And if they're smart, and most people who work at Dartmouth are, it'll be the parent who earns less that makes the application. But so it's a big it's a big investment. It's a really big investment that Dartmouth is making. And I really applaud, Sion for wanting to move forward quickly with something, even though it doesn't solve the whole problem.
Sunny, I'm so happy that you talked about like this is the piece, because it really does. I think that's been my frustration, is that it doesn't open slots. In fact, we're still at the, just because you're paying the wage, you're still paying that same wage, like you're paying against the tuition that's still low. And kind of, celebrating at the same time, this is part of a strategy. And the other thing that you said, which really kind of hits home, and I don't know, Mackenzie, you can still hear us. There's a lot of, kind of, I don't know, there's this thought that a categorical eligibility for childcare providers, there wouldn't be an appetite for that because it's unfair to people who don't. Well, do people who don't have children going to get $4,000? So if people are okay with a business doing it, and it happens, when I was teaching in public school, I had a single health insurance policy, and the lady next door has 7 children. She taught second grade, and she had 7 children, and she got a huge family policy. I didn't get a check for the difference, and I didn't expect a check for the difference. And I really think that categorical eligibility, there'll be more of an appetite than we think there is. People try to micro look at it, but this is a perfect example of that, where it's supporting families when they need it. If you don't have children, if you ever had children or foster children, you would have this, you would have the support. So I don't know. I just draw that parallel. Every time I hear something like this, I'm like, it's not different than categorical eligibility, because it is a categorical eligibility within your own private institution.
I just came off mute to say really quickly that I'm happy to share some resources that I have about like the messaging against like that I don't get that benefit, so it's not fair type thing, because we know what families having access to childcare does for the economy and how it lifts us all up. So I'll be happy to share some resources about ways that we can continue to flip that message so that it doesn't, even when we back up against those folks who say, like, I don't want this because it's not directly benefiting me, that we have something that we can point to and say, look at what it does for your community, though.
That would be great. Thank you. Sarah wrote, Anna in the chat, if you had a chance to see it. I know it's kind of tricky to keep on top of all the moving parts of this meeting. Appreciate it. So we conclude our meetings with what actions can members take over the next 2 weeks before we meet again. I have lots of notes written all over my paper, not very neat with arrows, but I think the word is decrypt it and understand where I was going with it. Just today, this afternoon at I think 12:30. I'm going to be meeting with 2 people from White River Junction who are the Vermont Department of Health Children with Special Needs group. And so they're very interested in our work. And as part of ECE, maybe one of them will join some of our meetings in the future, but they're a great organization.
I think one of those people is Reggie Cooper.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I got to tell you, she is a mover and a shaker. She kind of, her mind works a little differently than other people, but she is the person who had a personal campaign and got the bridge over the Ottaquechee River at Quechee Gorge restructured on the side so that suicides have stopped happening there. It was the highest suicide location in the state of Vermont for 4 decades. And Reggie's personal campaign on that changed that. She can make mountains move.
Amazing. Wonderful. I'm glad to have that information before I head into that meeting. And I'm also going to be meeting with Mark Botwell, and he is through Senior Solutions. Very much so interested in early childhood education and connecting seniors and how those relationships are so important. So I'll be moving forward with those 2 meetings, trying to glean as much information and kind of build our capacity as a group, and letting them know what Vital Communities is working on, and some of the key points that we are focusing on. I will be following up with Sarah K and Amy and Sarah V to try to get that meeting. Maybe Sarah K, you could get that on everybody's radar, as well as I'm interested in this Waterford Upstart. Just curious. I want to do more research on that. Also,
As
with
an
my public
educator.
education hat, yeah. There's a lot happening with the 306s that I've been following that are along those lines as well. And that, once again, Jackie Furman will be here on October 13th, so I'm really excited to see what she's saying. Those of you who are on workforce, there is that meeting Monday, but note, due to the holiday, there's not going to be a meeting that second week later. We bump out to the end of October. So just to put that on your radars early on. Other folks, some actions that you can take in the next 2 weeks. And it counts Sunny sending us that information from. You can count what you may have done. Mackenzie?
And yes, Joanne, I can prime the pump on that piece, for the conversations. And I also want to flag that there was an op-ed, I think it's Today's Union Leader, by Dick and Barbara Couch about ECE. And I believe the same statement is going to be in the Valley News, but I don't know when.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I wonder if it's okay for me to just drop a note in the follow-up resources that I send your way, Joanne, about an action I have that you can take, but no pressure, about the debt ceiling and how it affects childcare. So I can send that your way, but that's through Moms Rising. So let's take that action if you want to.
Thank you. I know Tammy is going to be connecting me with a person, which would be fantastic. And how are you doing today, Tammy? Oh.
Yeah, the person I'm connecting you with is Susan Titterton. And I've already sent that email out. And I CC'd you on it, so you'll have that. And then I did have one question. I recently attended a community forum that was hosted by the Thetford Elementary School Board, in which Rebecca Holcomb was present. She gave a talk about how Thetford and Norwich are both in the same, I guess you could say, tax bracket, where because of recent legislative changes that are coming down the road, that the education tax rate is going to go up 30% to as much as 50% in Thetford and Norwich. And I don't know if that discussion and getting more insight into that would be something that this group would be interested in or not, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. I am actually, I've already booked her to actually meet with 3 networks that I'm a part of, so that she can talk to all the providers. But I don't know if it's something that maybe Vital Communities would want to get on board and put in a newsletter, that kind of information, that since that reaches so many people, or what. I just thought it was really important that I at least get that word out to the providers that I know.
Absolutely. If you can send the dates and a little bit of just a little tiny blurb, we can push it out through the ECE listserv and let people know. Is it virtual and in person? Is it a virtual meeting?
It's all virtual, actually.
Okay, great. That's wow. It made my stomach turn a bit. I did a stomach flip when I heard that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for letting us know. That was not on my radar, so I appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll put on my to-do then to reach out to Rebecca and see if maybe she can write up a little summary kind of statement about what's going to be happening in our state.
If she has time, yes, and then we can push it out through the listserv, and hopefully people will join and attend via the Zoom, so they're more informed about what's happening.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I'll let you know the details of that too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else want to share their thoughts about actions that they could take over the next 2 weeks, and let us know how it goes when we reconvene?
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I'm definitely going to link up with, no, that's okay, with Mackenzie to talk about possible op-ed stuff around how businesses can support ECE. But I think in service of that kind of work, I'm looking forward to connecting with the big businesses she was mentioning were at that conference, like Badger Balm and Timberland, and maybe just getting some kind of community of practice kind of going. And trying to carry those ideas forward.
That's wonderful. Great. Anna, can you hook us up with the information in regard to legislation that I think Mackenzie said she might share, that she keeps tabs on? Because there seems
Yeah, I
like
can shoot her an email to.
Yeah, it's coming up again, and it'd be great if we were on top of that. Thank you. Okay, it is 10:57 on a Friday. I will be feet in the sand tonight in Algonquin for a couple of days, one of my favorite places. Hopefully I'll be problem solving as I'm getting there, figuring out how to make all of this come together and work. But I really appreciate everyone's time and effort and thoughtfulness. It's exciting to be at this tipping point together. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you soon. Take care.
Bye.